how it started was a series of water leaks that were mysterious. The water just appeared on the floor somehow, and we didn't think anything of it. But the problem was it got into the carpets, the furniture, over a couple of years, and without knowing it, we had a mold problem. My doctor, Carol Peterson, tested and discovered that we had the effects of toxic mold. So we had ERMI testing done in the house, all over the house, and they discovered about 20 types of mold, including some very toxic versions of the mold.
We recently noticed that we had an interior wall where the bottom ½ to inch of the wall was beginning to flake and kind of corrode a little bit. And we became a little bit more worried when realizing that that wall was also shared with our shower on the other side of that wall. We've also had some instances in 2020 where I had multiple sinus infections, and my son, who is 12, had multiple eye infections. And this is something that has never occurred with us before.
The issue was there was a lot of mold underneath the house because it was blowing underneath on the wood.
I got a phone call I got a text from my email showing us that there was mold in the bathroom and in the attic and in their master bedroom.
In 2004, I was diagnosed with chronic disseminated Lyme disease. I had been suffering symptoms since sometime in the early 90s, I think, and had gone undiagnosed for many, many, many years and was already having neurological symptoms by the time I was diagnosed. I tested positive 3 times over 2 years with 3 different tests, so there's very little doubt, if any, that I do actually have Lyme disease. I have been in medical treatment with a number of different naturopaths since 2003, and each of those naturopaths in turn has sort of plateaued in their ability to help me continue to get better. And my last naturopath felt very strongly that a big part of my inability to recover from Lyme has been the fact that I have lived for 25 years in a house built in 1912 that has no insulation and the original windows. It's like living in a big leaky tent. And on top of all of the rest of this, the floor in the basement is dirt. And this exposed dirt floor in a basement with no ventilation was producing a highly significant amount of mold. And living in a house with all of this mold exposure, my naturopath convinced me was preventing me from recovering from Lyme. And
so I discovered that we had a water incursion problem early on a Sunday morning. This was the weekend prior to the Christmas holiday. I noticed water pooling on the carpet. It didn't take long to find that water was coming through the carpet everywhere.
So what the issue was in our home is an 80-year-old home, and the issue was something that has been going on long before we bought the house 4 years ago. There was a shower pan leak, also covered up by 4 layers of shower tile, which was a surprise to all of us as each layer continued to come off. It was like, and there's another layer of tile, which just made the moisture get trapped. And unfortunately, the water and moisture had no place to go except for into our wall cavity.
the 2 upper floors of my house were severely saturated with candida, and the basement was saturated with penicillin. And when I say saturated, I mean that the lab was normally able to count the spores in a given petri dish, and in several of the ones from this house, they were unable to do that. And they said, we see levels this high sometimes, but it's pretty rare. So there was no question that the house was indeed saturated with mold, although most of it was not visible to the naked eye. Most people who walked into the house could smell it immediately. I got pretty nose blind over time.
So I contacted Rescom based on Dr. Peterson's recommendation.
So, being somewhat emergent, I used my phone and researched water abatement. And I found Rescom. There are other companies that you see advertised on TV a lot, but Rescom was local to me, and that means something. So I called at around 7:30 on Sunday morning, and lo and behold, I got a person, not an answering machine. Very nice lady. She asked if water was still coming in. I said, yes, it is. She said, that sounds like an emergency. I'll get somebody to call you.
So visiting our pediatrician, he recommended that we get our house checked for mold. We Googled mold treatment and mold remedy people in the Portland area, and Rescom came up as the #1 recommendation. We called and got a call back within 15 minutes.
So we actually found Rescom through the internet, which was really nice. Just put down what was wrong with and Googled it, and there you were. And we called. And the nice part is we like to go with 2 or 3 companies. So we called 2 or 3 companies, and Rescom picked up their phone right away. That was a real A+ for them.
One of their friends recommended Rescom as a mold remediation person that was quick and reasonable. So we contacted them and they came out.
One day at my chiropractor's office, I found a brochure for Rescom. And I called and made an appointment.
So the first step was preparation on our part. We took the opportunity to do a massive decluttering of the house. We took loads and loads and loads of stuff to recycling, to the dump. Whatever we could get rid of, we could. It was amazing to do that, and very motivated by getting our house rid of mold. And they wanted us to prepare the house by getting rid of as much stuff as we didn't need or that had been affected by mold, which was furniture, carpets, drapery. So the really toxic stuff just went to the dump. And they wanted us to expose everything that we could possibly expose to the fog that they were bringing in. We spent a lot of hours preparing. It was a great opportunity to get our house cleaned out. And so to prepare, we had the ducts cleaned all the heating ducts. We removed all the moldy items, and we opened everything we could open, and things that were deeply buried, we kind of got out in the open. So the day of the fogging, the team showed up and we had the house all ready. We left with our dog on each other. I think it took about maybe 4 or 6 hours. And he texted us when the house was about ready, and we came back to the house and there was just a light amount of fog. And he told us that it's safe, as this is not a toxic procedure at all. So I went into the house and I breathed in a little bit of the remaining fog. And my lungs opened up. It was really amazing. I will never forget how that felt. It was really good. And once the fog all cleared, we all moved back in, and the house just felt amazing. It's hard to describe or even put a word to it, but it was like freedom somehow or other.
Now my house has been fogged and my basement has been vapor sealed and my floor has been covered with plastic, and I have hope that I haven't had in a long time of feeling better.
They cut out sections of the carpet so that the spread of water wouldn't severely affect the drywall and such. Shortly after that, fans and humidifiers came in, and at that point I felt, well, we're really on the way to getting this thing straightened out. They put up a plastic barrier between the downstairs door and the upstairs living area to keep out the moisture and the noise from the fans and such. And so very shortly, we had the water abatement under control. They put in a sump pump, found the source of most of the water, put in a sump pump in my crawl space.
They did a very thorough job of educating, I think, myself and my husband and maybe our tenants as well, that what they needed to do, what the procedure was going to be, how the fogging was different than using other mold companies, and we got quite an education from that. They came out here, they did exactly what they said they were going to do.
But they came in and they took care of it, and they took out all of the wall that had been damaged, and the tile got removed, and then also they did a whole home fog on our property, which allowed us to sleep a little bit better at night, knowing that not only had the mold been taken care of at the immediate site, but it had also been remedied throughout the air in our entire home, which was a couple hour process, but well worth it. It allowed us to come back into our home knowing that we were bringing our family and our children and our dogs back into a safe environment where we literally felt like we could breathe easier. They've been great to work with, very communicative, open to telling us what could happen and then versus what did happen. Very on time, showed up exactly when they said they were going to, very organized. The staff was very courteous and very informative and let us know the process along the way. Mold is a really scary word that you never want to hear when dealing with your home. So finding out that it was in fact mold, and how they were going to remedy it and how they were going to make sure that our family was safe was of the utmost importance. Stuck to the timeline and did everything that they said they were going to do, and it got alleviated and taken care of within 7 days of their first visit, with very little impact on us and our home and our safety during that time.
I like their team. They came in quietly every day, went underneath the house, just like they were going into a room in my home. And once in a while, I didn't hear anything. I'd go down, do you need anything down there? But no, everything was fine. And then they'd come up and they have maybe a short lunch break, but some days they were there. It was a big mess underneath there, trust me. Had to replace everything. And the other thing I noticed is they were always punctual. And even though they were coming from the other side of town and polite.
They even went over and above by doing some demo work that needed to be done as well.
But also, they told me of other things to look for that other companies would have to do, such as the pipes that were, it's not just that pipe that burst, and they alerted us that we probably should call another company to have that looked at. So that helped us because I wasn't crawling underneath the house, trust me. Neither was my husband. We're just of that age that we weren't going to go underneath the house. Well, the best part after they finished, they came, we called, we said, do you mind coming and doing another inspection after everything was done? Because we did have a pipe company come in, plumbing company come in, put all new pipes in, and they were just pulling tons of copper pipe out that was bad. And we just know that they were just wrecking everything Rescom did. So we thought, I wonder if they'd want. So well, I called and asked if they'd, but oh, absolutely. Jason says absolutely. He says we'll send Emily out to inspect. And she did another thorough inspection. In fact, found a tool from the plumbing company. Says he forgot his cutter, Bonnie. So I thought that was pretty neat. So she collected the plumber's tools, picked up some pipe that was just laying there, and she says, but the new barrier that they put down was still in place and still doing a good job, and there was no water on it, and did further inspection. And they wouldn't even charge me for that. And I know that that wasn't part of their thing, but they just felt that that was just something that they wanted to do.
Jason's team did great and also were able to follow through with the recovery of the room and the remodeling, including the carpet, repair of the drywall, and everything needed to get the room in the shape that we see now. So I highly recommend everybody that works for and around Jason was very, very personable and kind. So that's the company for me.
Mold is not a word you ever want to hear as a homeowner, but they made the process so easy and so just stress-free for us as much as it possibly could have, given the fact that all the timelines were met and they showed up when they said they were going to show up. They were so customer service focused. There was at one point 3 of their vans in our driveway because they wanted to get more people in to get an opinion about something that maybe they hadn't seen before. Our house is built on a slab, which is not very common in the Pacific Northwest. So they had some other obstacles with that, but they called in people and they got advice from partners to make sure that they were doing the right things before they moved forward. Overall, I would 100% recommend them for any of those kind of needs that unfortunately homeowners do come across sometimes, especially in older homes here in the Pacific Northwest. I would 100% recommend them for any of that service.
One thing I liked, when I Google searched and found your local, I just sensed, and when I got an answer from a person at that time on a Sunday morning, I was pretty confident we were looking at a family-owned business, and that means a lot to me.
Yeah, it does to us as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we try to be rooted in integrity, and that's not something you find very often in this business.
That's right.
Working with Rescom was everything I hope for when I'm working for a company, working with a company. When I am a customer, I hope to be treated with respect. I hope to be listened to. I hope to have my needs met. I hope to be treated kindly and with patience. And I found all of these things to be true with Rescom. They answered my calls. They showed up when they said they would. They did what they said they were going to do. They stuck to their estimates. They gave me the best price they possibly could. They were kind and helpful. They answered every question, no matter how ridiculous. They advocated for me with my landlord. They were incredibly patient. There were hitches in the project that delayed it more than once, so that it actually took months to get it done, and they never gave up. They showed up. They showed up, and they showed up again, and they showed up again, and they consulted with me and guided me at every step. And this literally would not have happened without them, and I really doubt it would have happened with any other company. And so, one of the very first things that happened was that I mentioned that I have Lyme, and was immediately responded to with, "Oh, yeah, that's serious. Let's get you helped." And if you have Lyme or know people who do, you will understand that that's not a response you can count on. At least as often you say that you have Lyme and somebody else says, "Oh, well, what's that?" or you just get dismissed. But Rescom, the folks at Rescom understand what Lyme is and how serious it is, and respond appropriately and supportively. So that was huge for me also, to have people who recognized the nature of my illness and were willing to really give me that extra measure of support. So if you have Lyme, or even if you don't, and you live in a moldy house, which there are many, many, many of them in Portland, I strongly recommend working with Rescom. Thank you.
And then a year later, I had the testing redone, ERMI testing again, and the house was still clear. There were some very common molds around, but none of the toxic molds had reappeared. So we were really, really delighted with ResCom. The team was fabulous to work with. Jason is wonderful. He explained everything. There's no big secrets. It was all out in the open what they were doing. And I recommend Jason to everybody I know who might have a mold problem. I'm very happy with their service.